The Energy Talk.
Hello and welcome to the Energy Talk podcast. My name is Olubumi Olajide and thank you so much for joining us again this week. Today we have a very special episode because we have not one but two guests. This is episode 4 on our series on renewables in Africa, and our guests for today are Femi Adeyemo, who is the founder and CEO of Arnergy, and Chuks Umezulora, who is the co-founder and chief operating officer of Auxano Solar. So combined, both companies have raised $10.5 million in funding so far. Although the founders have very different backgrounds, something that they do have in common other than both being Nigerians is that they've both been invested in by All On, which is an impact investing firm based in Lagos, Nigeria. And we actually had the privilege to have the CEO of All On, Dr. Weber, on the podcast 2 weeks ago. So I highly recommend you check that out. We talk about building a clean tech ecosystem on the African continent, and these two companies are very much part of that ecosystem. On this episode, we're first going to be hearing from Femi. So Femi first got his professional career started in the telecommunication sector, where he worked with different companies and later as a consultant, traveling to countries in Europe, South America, the Caribbean, and the Middle East. And after he had done his travels, he later came back to Nigeria to start Arnergy. In 2019, Arnergy raised $9 million in Series A funding led by Breakthrough Energy Ventures, which was founded by Bill Gates, and also the North Fund, the Electrification Financing Initiative, and of course, All On. Femi talks first about what it was like first coming into the space and breaking down a lot of the barriers and initial myths that came with working in the solar industry, and later he goes on to tell us about the projects that have solidified his belief in the renewable energy sector and the projects that have had the most impact on him. So we're going to hear from Femi first, and I hope you learned something from this conversation and enjoy.
So we're able to demystify the myth then that solar doesn't work by going all out there, deploying systems that are completely off-grid, people that do not live in the city, and then having media coverage that was on the national televisions, and people were saying that indeed, people that are not living in Lagos or Abuja were able to enjoy 24 hours electricity off solar. Yeah. So I think all of those helped. And we also then started a listen program, which was more or less us saying that the risk is on us. We were happy to put our solar assets on customers' roof, and they will pay us over 36 months. So what people were used to was systems deployed by freelancers that, we had instances of some customers running to us to come help them fix systems that they deployed or they acquired 6 months prior but are no longer functional. So the fact that we were able to offer long-term leasing, all of those helped to resolve those obstacles. And I think on the finance side, yes, of course, it became clear to us that we might not be able to get the kind of investment that we needed locally, which was what made us to look abroad, and we were able to bring in capital. Of course, several other organizations in Nigeria, and I'm talking of Nigerian-funded organizations, on the back of what we were able to do, we were able to use our success story as a case study to be able to convince other investors to give them equity or debt in their organization. For the organization.
It's actually really excellent to hear, and I know that this story is still adapting. So far, I think I have 2 final questions to go here. What project from Arnergy has really impacted you the most and really reinforced the mission?
So I think I will mention 3 projects. The first project was a project we deployed in Owerri. This was for, I believe, 150 rooms, student hostels. So it's a private student hostels for the students of Federal University of Technology Owerri and Federal Polytechnic Nekede. Our solar solution, we deployed it, 154-room hostels with a gym, with library, with restaurants, and a cafe. So that was a landmark project for us. We deployed that in 2017. And the fact that students were able to have access to uninterrupted electricity, to be able to study when they want, not constrained to when the national grid provide them electricity. That was a very big one for us. The second was a project that we deployed in partnership with General Electric, Healthcare, and Shell. So an hospital in Oloibiri, the town where Nigeria discovered oil, was adopted by, and GE Healthcare was the contractor that was responsible for the whole transformation. So it was an old community township hospital, but it was rebuilt, and then given that the community might not be able to afford the ongoing operating expenses to fuel, the generator with diesel, it was decided that they will power it with solar. They were meant to fly in equipment from outside Nigeria, but the cost was prohibitive. And during one of the meetings, someone just asked a question that isn't there in a Nigerian company that could do such project? They didn't think they could find until someone mentioned maybe they should try the Arnergy guys. And the rest is history. After that project in 2017, we've gone ahead to do several projects. And that was because we were able to deploy the first one successfully. The third will be, I had mentioned as why the company was funded, the Eureka moment, which was us powering telecom. You realize that all of what I've mentioned, I've not mentioned telecom, but I think what happened last year globally, which was COVID, more or less reminded us what our first love is, right? And then we were able to also develop new products, specifically for the telecom sectors. And we're excited at where we are now, because we're now in a position where instead of the telecom, the tower infrastructure companies, or even the MNOs importing product from wherever, they're able to walk into Arnergy's offices, sign a partnership, and instead of them, especially for the telecom towers in rural Nigeria or peri-urban, we're now able to power such telecom towers completely off-grid without generators. So that is something we're very, very excited about. And we believe that with such opportunity, the future is bright, not only for the company, but for the opportunity that will be creating for young Nigeria.
That is really fantastic to hear. And I wish you could dive deeper into that, but I have to go to the last question. It's very good you brought up the example of the universities and young Nigerians, because as the renewable energy industry grows, it's going to attract a lot of talent and create a lot more jobs. So what advice do you have for young people looking to enter the renewable energy space, and what skills do you think are most relevant for them to be looking to build right now?
Skill that is most relevant, number one, grit, and grit. Because it's not going to be easy. Entrepreneurship, it's not easy. But with enough grit, the opportunity is huge. Of course, for young Nigerians to get into the sector, I will say that it might be a good idea if such young Nigerian is just getting out of university, maybe gets a paid employment, however short. And I'm talking of the period of time, maybe even it's 1 year, 2 years, just to understand it. From a project developer point of view, or maybe an ecosystem enabler, because that will give room to be able to understudy. And then, of course, technical skills cannot be overstated, right? So the technical skills on PV deployment, PV stringing, battery nowadays is no longer conversations around lead acid battery, lithium ion batteries. And beyond that, some of the competitive advantage that we have as a company is we are not a trader. We don't just buy and sell, we add values. So we have software engineers, we have even hardware engineers, power engineers that add values to whatever we bring in. The ones that we cannot manufacture locally, we bring in, but we add values. So those are the different value chain, right, that I see young Nigerians being able to tap into the space, because visualization, remote monitoring is very critical nowadays, right? So, and those are other parts of the value chain that young Nigerians can tap into. As an organization like ours, and maybe the other top three in the country, they're deploying across the country, There are even expansions outside Nigeria now into Anglophone, African, and even Francophone. So even developing capacity to be able to do operation and maintenance, developing capacity to be able to set up installation company that can install at the highest level of professionalism. Those are opportunities that are still untapped in the sector.
Now we're going to be hearing from Chuks, who again is the co-founder and chief operating officer of Auxano Solar. In 2020, Auxano Solar raised 1.5 million in seed funding, which was led by All On. And as you are going to hear, Chuks had a very unique start to the renewable energy industry.
So my name is Chuks Umezulora. I studied industrial chemistry from Imo State University here in Nigeria. My venturing into entrepreneur, the solar space, it was mostly accidental, I would say. Most young people that left school, trying to see where I can find a job and all that. So when I came to Lagos and did a couple of bank interviews and wasn't getting anyone, so I decided to start looking at the informal sector. So I started going out to the market where they sell mostly building materials. So I started acting as site supervisors for some people that I know from the East. So when that building, I acted as site supervisors. So one day I was sent to pick up a building plan from one architect, somewhere in Amodofin. So I stumbled in, I saw some Chinese talking about solar. So I was interested. So I said to him, sorry, sir, if you don't mind, can I stay, for the training? He said, sure, no problem. So that was how it started. So I stayed for day one. So they said they're going to have the second day. I told him, please, if you don't mind, can I come back the next day? He said, no problem. So after the 2 days training, I had a deep interest, so I approached him and said, please, that I would like to work with him. He told me that as I can see that he's just starting, that he cannot take the burden of employing people. So I told him, okay, if it's just a financial burden that, I wouldn't mind working for free, so at least it will give me the opportunity to be able to listen to that. He says, okay, if I'm working for free, that is, that he cannot turn that down, of course. So that was how I started, so what I did is this, I told him, okay, that I'm going to be taking Tuesdays and Thursdays off, to also do some other side hustles, because I was still supplying building materials and all that. So that I can, make some money. So, but anytime we have a project, I tell them, okay, let them feel free. Anytime we have something serious, let me know. I can come in every day. So but that was how it continued. So I worked with them for 2 years, a little above 2 years. After that time, then, I told them, I think that, that I've tried here, I've, giving them some value, and I've also learned, that I think it's time now I start on my own. So he said to me, okay, fine. So he wished me well. So that was how I now ventured. So I was able to rent a small office in Alaba International Market. Alaba International Market is a wholesale market where they sell solar components in Nigeria. It's somewhere in Ojo. So I had that, small shop there. I had a small television, small table and desk. So how I entered was, because basically the 2 years I worked with the company Sky Resources, I was working with the installation team. So I know a bit about installation. So what I did is, so when I opened that office, it was more like a consultant, more like what people call like a consultant of today. So I met the big guys who are the importers. So I told them, okay, see, so I'm an engineer. I can design solar system. I can install solar system. So if you have any requests, please just call me. My shop is close by. You just up there. So that was how it started. So when the hardworking customers come and ask for solar systems, asking questions, they will quickly call me. They say, engineer, come. So I'll rush down there. So I explain to them, I'll do the design. So they will sell the components to them. Then I will charge the client for the installation. It was something very small then. 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. If it's a very large system, I can charge as high as 50,000. So that was how it started. So but what started happening is that, so my reputation started growing in the market. So people were calling me a bit more often. So from getting small jobs, started calling me for big jobs. So what happened, was this, and it's typical in any service business like ours. So many of the customers, after I install for them, if they need something the next time, they don't call the importer anymore. So now they call me. So I now migrated from, not just doing installation now, so I also supply the components. So even though I may still buy from the same importers in the market, but I started also making, a little more margin on the sale of the components. So that was how it started. So as I saved little money, I also started importing a few things. I started with LED bulbs, because, the capital requirement wasn't so much, So that was how I started, and my reputation started growing. I think until it was in 2013, 2014 that I got, the first big break. I got a call, from someone saying that some people are looking for someone who can install solar street lights, for the assembly plant. So it turned out Stallion bought over Volkswagen, so they were revamping the place. So they have massive fields where they were parking the cars. So they needed solar street light installed, So, I told them I can do it. So I was invited for the bid. So I went to the office in VI, had a long chat with them and all that. And, so I got the job, but the other thing was I didn't have enough reputation to handle a project of that size, because it was huge then. A little above 50 million, so they needed me to give them a bank guarantee, to show that I can deliver, so it wasn't easy, but after a while I was able to get that from Zenith Bank, so I did that job successfully and got paid. So that was basically how it started. So that capital was how we started Auxano Solar from. So I think it was in 2014 we formally registered Auxano Solar. And then in 2016 was when we started, the assembling. The thought started in 2014. So the thought for assembling first came, so like I told you, I started as from the informal market, Alaba International. So the first major issue I started having with the market was because they are traders, so for them just to make sale. So I started having the issue of quality of the components, so I started having that issue, and this was beginning to affect my work. So what I started doing, I started asking, okay, so how can I be sure of the quality of what I'm offering to these clients I'm servicing? Because mine is not just to sell and go. 6 months after, 1 year after, some people even 5 years after, they're still calling you. So it's better. I found that it's better for me to just do a good job the first time and reduce the call out time. So that was how the idea started. Because when we started facing quality issues with batteries, I was trying to find a way to manage that. I was having quality issues with inverters. I was trying to find a way to manage that. When I had quality issues with solar panels, I said, no. That this is just going to kill the whole sector. So I spoke with my brother Uche. So I told him, I said that I'm thinking that maybe why not we invest into maybe buying testing equipment, for solar models. That was the first idea that we had. So when I checked out the testing equipment, it was slightly expensive, but then very bulky. So because of the size, we just said, okay, instead of just buying testing equipment for solar models, why not just maybe take it a step further, and start solar panel assembly. So that was basically how we started Auxano Solar.
This is actually like a pure entrepreneurship story, and that's actually really excellent to hear. It's actually very fascinating because you had to learn a lot of different skills as you scaled up. So was that particularly challenging, and how did you go about it? Because I think this is going to be very interesting for people who are maybe in similar situations right now as well.
Okay, yeah, of course, entrepreneur is very challenging. There is no need to sugarcoat it. Because most times when you listen to inspiration people, talk, sometimes they tell you, but it's very challenging. But what I tell people is this: you need to enter it. It's just like the general that took some people to battle and he burned to the bridge. So he told them, he says, the only way we can go back is to win this war. Are you getting me? So I tell people, I say, if you want to win in Nigeria, you must make up your mind that it's either you win or you die here. If you have a plan B, believe you me, it's not going to work because there's going to be so many obstacles thrown at you. You're going to think something will take 6 months, it will take 6 years. So there's going to be a lot thrown at you. So what I tell people is this: first of all, ask yourself, what do you have? So for me that time, what I had was I had time. I had plenty of time. So I started asking myself, okay, so what can I exchange for free time and get value in return for my time? So that was how I started with installation. Yeah, I mean, because I tell people this, I say, with installation skills, with just a plier and a screwdriver, you can make money in any city in Nigeria. Yeah, even though I will also accept that it's a bit more challenging today than it was for me 10 years ago, to be honest. Because that time weren't many of us doing it. So I was kind of highly sought after. So because let me even give you a very simple scenario. It got to a point in Alaba international market that people will get jobs, they will call me, I will say, they say my price is high. So I found out that some other guys who were a bit less experienced came in and they were charging one third of what I was charging. So but what I also did. So after a while I said, you know what, I'm gonna move up. So what I did is this. So I moved out of the market. I got another office outside the market. I said, okay, that my target market now has changed. No longer the guys in the market. So one thing is to understand the market. Two is to also know, okay, who are your target market. So today I still do installations. But everybody is not my target market. Sometimes you're talking to me, you tell me, you got to this price. I tell you, okay, sir, I'm not sure I'm your right guy. But if you want this, talk to me. But if you want somebody at that price, that you can find them, but it's not me. Because what happens? I can understand because I was also in that position some time ago. There used to be time that I was charging 5,000-10,000 to do an installation. I once charged 15,000 to install 10 kVA, system. But what I learned was that after a while, the money I spent in call out, I ended up spending all the money I charged, in call out, trying to resolve issues. So what happened is with experience, I now learned, okay, I need to price in this. Into my pricing from day one. So you're calling me, I'm already thinking, okay, that this is like a 2 years contract. You're going to be calling me for 2 years. So I'm already pricing that into the cost I'm giving you. So obviously I'm going to be a bit more expensive than someone who has little experience. Because for the person is just looking at, okay, I need cable, I need this, I need that. So that's another thing. Then, but the other good side is that the industry is growing. The industry has grown. There are a lot more projects, solar projects happening, bigger projects. And then the confidence in the sector has also grown. When we came in, the initial criteria was solar. Does it work? Does it work? But you hardly hear that anymore these days. So people say, okay, I want somebody who will do a good solar job for me, who will do a quality installation for me. So you see, we migrated from does it work? So now they know, okay, it works, but you have to find people that can do quality installations. And the other thing is also to understand the industry end to end. For me, is also another good thing. Because I must say this, having played in different stratas of the industry has helped me a whole lot. So I was a technician, I was a trader, I was doing design, I was an importer, and now, the manufacturing side of the business. So that helps me juggle the ball. That helps me juggle the ball. Sometimes, this sector of the market is not doing so well, I just switch to the other sector. Because like I told you, the first thing is this, I make up my mind that I'm going to make money from this sector. I tell people, I say, there may be a few of us that every dime we made from this sector. From the 1 naira to the millions and even the billions we're going to make, from this sector. But a whole lot depends on understanding the whole sector. Someone told me this. He said, work for the industry, not for a company. So I always have that at the back of my mind. That I'm working for an industry, not for a company. And everything I do affects the industry. It's not just about Auxano Solar.
Thank you so much for listening to the episode. I had such a great time speaking with these two amazing founders of renewable energy companies in Africa. And I want to say a huge thank you as well again to Dr. Webabor from All On, who made the introductions to these two amazing men that I had the pleasure of speaking with today. And also, after this series ends, I'm very happy to take recommendations about any companies you feel is making a difference in the space, or any investors who would like to get a message across to a much wider audience. Much later in this series, we're going to be speaking with somebody from the Shell Foundation, which is also going to be a very great conversation as well. So thank you once again. Look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you have a lovely day. Bye-bye now.
Thanks for listening to the Energy Talk podcast. You can find us on all podcast listening platforms. Just search for the Energy Talk. Send us an email to @energytalkpodcast@gmail.com.